Hello viewers, once again I welcome you to our program, Marriage and the Home. My name remains Israel Tajomawo, and I continue to appreciate you for watching our program. In the last 4 episodes, we have been talking about the challenges of marriage. And in the last episode, we looked at part 4 of this our discussion on the challenges of marriage. We have been able to list about 10 out of these challenges of marriage, and we have talked about, we have discussed 8 of them. And so far, we have been able to say a lot of things concerning the challenges of marriage, how these things affect a lot of couples. In the last episode, we treated 2 of these challenges, that is incompatibility issues and lack of trust. In today's episode, I will be talking about sexual dissatisfaction. I want to spend some time here because this particular issue is something that has destroyed a lot of marriages. And as I know, a lot of people don't like to talk about the issues of sex. Before I make progress, I want to ask a question. Are you satisfied with your love life? With your the sex that you have from your partner, are you happy with it? Do you derive pleasure from it? Are you satisfied? You can answer that question. But I do know that these are some of the problems that couples have. A lot of couples do not want to talk about their sexual needs, their feelings, or their problems. But the problem is there. Whether you like it or not, you must talk about it. And you don't wait until things get out of hand. Sexual dissatisfaction is a huge problem for a lot of couples. That's why we see the things that we see in the society today. Some of these men having side chick and many other situations that we see. Again, a lot of women are dying in silence because they cannot talk about it. A lot of men are dying in silence because they don't want to talk about it. So we want to look at all this. Today we want to pay close attention to the issue of sexual dissatisfaction. I want you to listen very closely. Now the question is, what is sexual dissatisfaction? Simply put, sexual dissatisfaction is a situation where the sexual hunger of a spouse is not met by his or her partner. We have a hunger for sex. It's like food, whether you like it or not. When you are married, there are certain times that that urge will come, even when you are not married. But we only encourage people that are married to engage in this act. So you have to satisfy that hunger. On many occasions, that hunger is not satisfied. And when it says not satisfied, I mean it in different ways. According to Dr. Paul David Tripp, he said, many Christian marriages are in the midst of some sexual struggle or dysfunction. Many husbands and wives in the church do not experience the beautiful, intimate sexual oneness that God designed. God designed sex, and some of us are not enjoying it. You know? What are the indicators of sexual dissatisfaction? How do we know? What are the things that we see? Number 1, recurrent cases of denial of sex. Recurrent cases. In a lot of times, you know, when the man comes, the woman will make excuses. I am tired, this and that. Can't you see I'm busy? You know, denial. I don't know how your own experience is, if it comes that way. Another indicator that you find is there's no arousal or foreplay. When you have done it before and the experience there, the woman is not, she doesn't see the pleasure or derive the pleasure from it, is not encouraged to go into it again. So that is an indicator that you are not doing what you are supposed to do, probably as a man, and it affects, it causes dissatisfaction. Another one is that there's no climax, most especially for the women. So the interest is not there because they are not able to take them to that point where they want to get to. So next time when you come, they say, well, let me just satisfy him. Another question that we want to ask is, why is sex important in marriage? A lot of women feel that sex is not important. They think that the men are overdoing it. On the other hand, a lot of men think that the women are not giving them enough. A lot of men think that the women are unreasonable. Now, let's look at some of the reasons why we say sex is important in marriage. One of them is that experience. Number one, experience shows that sex is important in marriage. Those who have been there, they can tell you what sex does to a marriage. So many things. It nourishes a marriage. It brings about intimacy in marriage. So sex is important in marriage. Experience tells us that. Another thing is that nature shows that sex is important in marriage. When you have to go, you have to go. When the urge is there, you cannot take it away because it is a natural thing. It is the way that God designed it. Number three is that the Bible says that sex is in marriage should be taken seriously. And when we say seriously, it should be taken seriously. In the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 3 to 5, it says, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife should unto the husband. The wife had no power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband had no power of her own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one another, except it be with consent, for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. A lot of things have been said here, and I want to break it down a little bit. And there are 5 things I want to pick out of this passage that speaks volume. God is full of knowledge, and he has put this information here for us to learn. Take a closer look at this passage. You'll find a number of things. I tell you. Number one, what it's saying is that sex is a two-way street. It's something that affects the husband, it affects the wife. Both parties must be involved. Both of them must take it seriously. It's not a situation whereby only the man takes seriously and the woman does not. They are both to take seriously. That is why in verse 3, you find the word likewise. When you talk about what the man is supposed to do, he now said likewise the woman. Likewise the man. So it's something that both of them must come to an agreement. They must understand the importance. They must understand what God is saying. What she is to do, you are to do. That is verse 3, likewise. Another thing we see there, sex is a right. That is number 2. It is a right. Verse 3 says, render due benevolence. So, it's not something you want to question whether you want to do it or not, except you are not a Christian. That's a different thing. That is what my Bible tells me. It says, render due benevolence, verse 3. So, it is a right. It's something God has said that you need to do. Number 3, no refusal or resistance. Verse 4 says, no power of his own body. The man had no power over his body. The woman had no power over his body. Which means you are not to refuse, except for genuine reasons. I mean, we are humans. If there's sickness, if there's overstress, then you have to work it out, between the two of you. Number 4, no excuses. If you are making excuses, let them be genuine excuses. Verse 5 says, defraud ye not one another. You should not defraud one another. If you refuse, that means you are defrauding. That is the word used. Defraud ye not. Defraud ye not. So you must not do that. Number 5, it says, delay can lead to temptation. Verse 5 says that Satan tempts you not. Which means that if there's delay, it can lead to temptation. So sometimes we blame people who go into infidelity, or some men that have side chick or something like that. I'm not making excuses for them, but this is the word of God. We are humans. We are made in flesh. Satan can tempt you, and that is the opportunity he's looking for. You are the one that will give Satan the avenue to do that thing. And that is why it says that Satan tempts you not. You shouldn't allow Satan to tempt you. So delay can lead to temptation. I want to add number 6. And that number 6 is one area that most people don't look at. That we are weak. We are made of flesh. We are human beings. We can fall. So we need to know that. Because verse 5 says, for your incontinency. What it means is that we lack self-control. Sometimes our emotions, they work without the benefits of our intellect. We get carried away. We get moved. And then we do things that we are not supposed to do. With all this, it tells us that the Bible is saying that sex is very, very important in marriage. It is key. Let us not underplay it. It would not be right to underplay sex so that we do not have dissatisfaction. Other reasons why sex is important in marriage is that sex is an integral part of marriage. A lot of people that get married, they get married for the reasons of sex, to avoid fornication. And indeed, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 2 says, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have his own husband. This is the Bible saying it now. To avoid fornication. A man goes into marriage to avoid fornication, so that he can have sex freely. And the woman is denying him, or the man is denying him. There's a problem, there's a disconnection. I want to tell you that denial is sin. This is what God is saying this year. That this is one of the reasons why you go into marriage. To avoid. And you are now making this person to fall into that temptation. Another thing is sex is also an indication of intimacy. Yes. Before you get to that point, you are getting closer and closer and closer, and you close the gap. You laugh, you smile, and do all those things. So it's an indication of intimacy. No sex, no intimacy. Now, what are the signs of sexual dissatisfaction? What do you see and you conclude that there's sexual dissatisfaction? Number 1, not having enough sex with your spouse. Well, there are cases where sometimes 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, I will say intentionally, because there's refusal. When it is too long like that, that is not what the Bible is talking about. There's a problem. Number 2, no sex with the spouse at all. There are some cases you say 2 years, you never touch her. What will be the problem? So why did you get married? And that is not good. And you expect that this person will not look for another option. you will definitely look for another option, because naturally we are made to do it, as men, as women. And when we are denied, to look for some other means. The other means, Number 3, begging to have sex. That's another sign that you see when every time the man has to beg. Unfortunately, in this part of our world, the women don't know how to, make the move. Most women don't know how to make the move. Most of the time, it's the men that make the move. And when they make the move, there's resistance, and the man begins to beg. It is not proper for the man to be begging all the time. We are not saying that, the man should not understand your position, but it shouldn't be something that is frequent. That if there's no begging, then there's no way. It's a sign. All right? Number 4 is struggle. Some, these things, they progress. After begging, leave me. They start struggling. And struggling. At the end of the day, it may be that the man will finish and the woman is not happy about it. Progress again. Number 5, sex by force. Of course, this is not right, but it happens. Some men end up raping their wife. This is an indicator of sexual dissatisfaction. These are some of the things that you see. It's not right. It shouldn't be that way. So we need to look at our relationship, look at our marriage, and see how we can make amends in some of all these areas. We must make effort to close some of this gap, so that we will not be complaining about the problems. That is the way it should be. I want to stop here now. In our next episode, I'm going to discuss further on the issue of sex, because there's a whole lot I want to talk about. So I want you to stay connected to this channel, continue to watch, and you will learn a lot about marital life, and see how you can help yourself in your marriage, or help some other person by giving some other advice. Thank you for watching. I want you to subscribe if you have not subscribed, until I come your way again next time. Bye.